Mahatma Gandhi, the beacon of hope for all Indians, set alight the flame of our freedom struggle ages ago. He shook the British Empire through a revolution never seen elsewhere and with the rare and distinct combination of truth and non-violence. Today, we are proud to present before you an extract from the inspiring book Gandhi, the Soul Force Warrior, written by the renowned author Pascal Nazareth, which portrays the transformation of Mahatma Gandhi from a shy youth to the great soul force warrior. There are five distinct spiritual sources which Gandhi drew upon to formulate his soul force ideology and praxis. These, in the order in which he imbibed them, are Jainism, Buddhism, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and the Quran. After Gandhi emerged from his youthful Sahara of atheism, he always carried the three aforementioned sacred books with him. Gandhi's Jainism's austere and non-violent practices impacted him deeply, particularly through his conversations with the Jain communities in Porbandar and Rajkot, among whom he had lived until he had turned 18 years of age. Subsequently, after returning from London, he met and was deeply inspired by the Jain jeweler, poet, mystic of Bombay, Sri Rai Chand. He maintained regular correspondence with him until the latter's death in 1901. Gandhi wrote this in his autobiography. Rai Chand Bhai's commercial transactions were worth hundreds and thousands. He was the connoisseur of pearls and diamonds. But these things were not the center around which his life revolved. That center was the passion to see God face to face. In my moments of spiritual crisis, he was the refuge. Gandhi's austere life, non-attachment to material possessions, regular fasts, days of silence, and choice of non-violence as the companion virtue of truth can therefore be attributed to Jainism and Rai Chand Bhai's influence. Gandhi's introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Buddhism and Christianity occurred in London. It was towards the end of his second year in London that he was introduced to the Bhagavad Gita by two theosophists. He described this in his autobiography. They were reading Edwin Arnold's translation, the song Celestial, and invited me to read the original with them. I felt ashamed as I had read the divine poem neither in Sanskrit nor Gujarati. I was constrained to tell them that I had not read the Gita but would gladly read it with them. Though my knowledge in Sanskrit was meager, I understood the original to the extent of telling where the translations failed to bring out its true meaning. Subsequently, Gandhi read the divine book in Gujarati as also in Sanskrit and memorized many of its inspiring verses. The book became his infallible guide of conduct, his dictionary of daily reference, and the book par excellence for the knowledge of truth. It taught him many vital truths, that the soul is immortal, that death is not an end but a new beginning, and that when confronted with untruth and injustice, one's bounded duty and only option was to face it without fear. It taught him the great importance of control over self. The deep impact of Bhagavad Gita's injunction regarding performance of duty can be seen in his fearless decision to combat the deep disease of color prejudice and suffer the hardships in the process. After he was unjustly ejected from the first-class compartment in which he was seated with a valid ticket in Peter Marriottsburg station. This deep impact regarding self-control can be seen in his stern determination to control all sensual desires and the Brahmacharya vow he took in 1906. Though Gandhi often referred to ancient Indian rishis and revealed his belief in Advaita's core philosophy, he is not known to have read any of the works of its enunciator, Shankara, Bill Durant, lauded as the greatest of Indian philosophers and at once the Aquinas and Kant of India. Thus, it is imperative to note that Gandhi's Advaitin concept of God as the indefinable mysterious power that pervades everything, the living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, and recreates. In which a satyagraha and other concepts were deeply rooted. Most of them were derived from the Bhagavad Gita, in which Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna. In this world, there are two orders of being: the perishable separate creatures and the changeless spirit. But beyond these is another, the Supreme Self, the eternal law that enters the entire cosmos and supports it from within. However, he may also have acquired this knowledge from Raichand Bai's long letter in 1894 in response to his requesting clarifications on 24 points concentrating on nature, the gods, Vedas, transmigration of souls, Hinduism and other religions. He may also have acquired it from Swami Vivekananda, whose Belur Mutt in Calcutta he visited on 30 January 1921. He stated this in his speech: "I have come here to pay homage to the revered memory of Swami Vivekananda. I have gone through all his works very thoroughly, and after having done so, the love I had towards my country increased 1,000-fold."
It was through Edwin Arnold's epic poem, The Light of Asia, that Gandhi initially learned of Lord Buddha's compassionate teaching and its great impact. He subsequently read other texts about him. It was mutual interest in Buddhism that brought him and Herman Kallenbach together in Pretoria in 1895. Thereafter, the latter became his lifelong friend and benefactor. The strong component of compassion in Gandhi's soul force ideology and praxis can be attributed to Buddhism. The best proofs of Gandhi's compassion are his 1917 visit to Champaran on the pleading of an unknown indigo farmer and the talisman he gave to India's future leaders on the eve of independence. The talisman advice was the following: whenever you are in doubt, try the following expedient. Recall the face of the poorest and most helpless man whom you have seen, and ask yourself whether the step you contemplate is of any use to him. Will he be able to gain anything by it? Will it restore to him control over his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to self-rule of the hungry and spiritually starved millions of our countrymen? It was a Christian vegetarian friend who introduced Gandhi to the Bible in London and urged him to read it. He agreed and plodded through the Old Testament, for some parts of which he felt revulsion. However, Gandhi in his autobiography has written that the New Testament, especially the Sermon on the Mount, went straight to my heart. The verses, "But I say to you, resist not evil. Whosoever smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also," went straight to my heart. The verses, "But I say to you, resist not evil. Whosoever smites thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also, and if any man take thy coat, let him have thy cloak too," delighted me beyond measure. My young mind tried to unify the teachings of the Gita, the Light of Asia, and the Sermon on the Mount. That renunciation is the highest form of religion appealed to me greatly. In South Africa, Gandhi read Tolstoy's "The Kingdom of God is Within You." It overwhelmed him and left an abiding impression on him. He also made an intensive study of Tolstoy's "The Gospel in Brief, What to Do." Many years later, on his way back from the 1931 Round Table Conference in London, Gandhi made a stop at Rome and visited the Sistine Chapel, where he saw a painting of the crucified Christ and was so deeply moved that he exclaimed, "What would not I have given to be able to bow my head before the living image of Christ crucified?" I saw there at once that nations, like individuals, have to be made through the agony of the cross and in no other way. Joy comes not out of the infliction of pain on others, but out of pain voluntarily borne by oneself. For Gandhi, Christ was the most active resistor known perhaps to history. His was non-violence par excellence. Amongst other tributes to Christ were the following. Jesus lived and died in vain if he did not teach us to regulate the whole of life by the eternal law of love. Jesus, a man who was completely innocent, offered himself as a sacrifice for the good of others, including his enemies, and became the ransom of the world. It was a perfect act. It was from Christ that Gandhi derived his idea that nation-like individuals have to be made through self-suffering, that joy comes out of the pain voluntarily borne by oneself, that all of one's life should be regulated by the eternal law of the love, and the meek will inherit the earth.
Gandhi's first contact with the Quran was in South Africa. Urged by his employer Abdullah Said and other Muslim friends, he purchased George Sale's translation of the Quran and read it. Subsequently, he read Washington Irving's Lives of Muhammad and his successors and Carlyle's description of the life of Prophet on heroes and hero worship and the heroic in history. He wrote that all these books raised Muhammad in my estimation. The greatest respect he acquired for the Quran is revealed in his following affirmation. I have read the Quran more than once. My religion enables me, obliges me to imbibe all that is good in all the greatest religions of the world. I have come to the conclusion that the reading of the Quran is essentially in favor of non-violence. It holds that non-violence is better than violence. Non-violence is enjoyed as a duty. Violence is permitted only where necessary. Islam's distinctive contribution to India's national culture is unadulterated belief in the oneness of God and practical application of the truth of the brotherhood of man for those within its fold. In Hinduism, the spirit of the brotherhood has become too much philosophized. Similarly, though philosophical Hinduism has no other God but God, it cannot be denied that practical Hinduism is not so emphatically uncompromising on this as Islam. C.F. Andrews has written about Gandhi's profound admiration for Prophet Muhammad and his son-in-law Ali. The bare simplicity with which they lived, the chivalrous devotion to the poor, the intense belief in God's overruling majesty, all these have had a great effect upon him. For there is a Puritan strain in Mahatma Gandhi to which such things as these most forcibly appeal. Gandhi's notions about the unadulterated belief, the brotherhood of man, and that truth implies justice are most likely derived from the Quran. Gandhi read it regularly. Its Surah 5, Ayat 9 states, O believers, stay firmly with God as you all witness for a fair dealing among people. Your hatred for others should not make you commit a wrong or depart from justice, for justice is next to pity.